large movements, high ratio of muscle cells to motor neurons. If I wanted to write my name in cursive, then I'm going to need a lot of fine motor control here. When I do that, I'm not getting a lot of power, but I got lots of stops and starts and very fine control over the movement. So you guys need to know that whenever we have gross motor control, it's a high ratio of myofibers to motor neurons. For fine movement, I don't need a lot of power, so one motor neuron only controls a few muscle cells for that very finesse type movement. All right, now I got a little bit more to do. Let me knock this out, and so we can be done with all of this. We're going to talk about isotonic and isometric contractions, concentric and eccentric, and we're going to talk about fast twitch, intermediate twitch, and slow twitch muscle. So when it comes to the different types of muscle contractions, there's two different types of muscle contractions we can talk about. One type of muscle contraction is called isotonic contractions. Now, a lot of times in science, the words will tell you what we're talking about. Iso means same. We've seen that before in this semester. And tonic means tension. In an isotonic contraction, tension stays the same. Muscle length changes. The tension will stay the same. The muscle length will change. That's somewhat counterintuitive, but again, it goes back to this concept of the forces that are fighting each other, tension and resistance. So let's say this is a 5-pound weight in my hand. The resistance is going to be gravity and the mass of that weight pulling my arm to length. If I start to increase the tension in the muscle, but the tension is less than the resistance, it ain't going anywhere. As soon as let's say I ask you to lift a 5-pound weight and I want you to touch your shoulder, but I want you to take a full second. I don't want you to just yank it. Then what I need to do is start doing recruitment, increasing the number of active motor units. And once the muscle is moving and the tension is greater than the resistance and it's moving the desired amount, I don't need to increase the tension any longer. So once the tension overcomes the resistance, the tension can stay the same, the muscle will change its length. There's two types of isotonic contractions. One is called concentric contractions. In a concentric contraction, con means width and center means the middle. If I look at the shape of a muscle with the tendons at either end, if I'm going to have resistance out here and tension in the middle of the muscle where the muscle cells are pulling towards the center, then in a concentric contraction, what that means is the tension is greater than the resistance and the muscle shortens or contracts. So if you were working out with a 5 or 10 or 20 pound weight, let's say you start to do a curl, when the muscle is shortening, that's the concentric contraction because the tension in the middle of the muscle within the center is greater than the resistance on the outside. The opposite of that, some people say it's eccentric, which means outside of, or some people say eccentric contractions. It's tomato, tomato. I don't care how you pronounce it. In eccentric contractions, the tension is less than the resistance, and the muscle lengthens. The muscle begins relaxing. Essentially, you're letting the weight down. I start deactivating motor units, and as soon as the weight starts moving the muscle the desired amount, I don't want to drop it. I want to slowly set it down. And then every rep should be under controlled concentric and eccentric contractions. For those of you that do kinesiology or physical therapy and training, you don't want to go to the gym. If you grab a big barbell and you're trying to work your biceps, you don't want so much weight that you're doing this, because what you're working is your hips and your abs and all of these muscles and less of your arms. You want just amount of weight so that you can contract it under control with concentric and eccentric contractions. Essentially what happens is as you're working out, some motor units will get tired. Let's say I have a motor unit that has 100 muscle cells that are contracting, and I've got 5 motor units firing to move a weight a desired amount. If one motor unit gets tired, As it starts to shut down, another motor unit of 100 cells will replace it. So I always have the same number of cells firing, and that's how you work more of the muscle. Now, the opposite of isotonic contractions is isometric contractions. In an isometric contraction, so I have isotonic and isometric. This means the same length. In an isometric contraction, tension changes, I should say. Muscle length stays the same. Again, this is counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what you would think, but if I interlock my fingers, I can start to increase the tension in my back and the muscles of my back. And you should see the muscle changing length, but it's not. Even though I increase and decrease the tension, the muscles stay the same length. Or I can push my hands together and then start to lighten up how much I'm pushing. The tension is going up and down, but the muscle length stays the same. That usually happens when we don't get any movement. In isotonic contractions, you see the body moving. In isometric contractions, those are more postural or body position type contractions. Finally, the last page of our note set. So that was page 60. We're on to page 61, muscle performance. We measure how muscles perform in two ways. By what we call the power, how much tension the muscle can generate, and endurance. Endurance is how long can the muscle continue to generate tension. So power is how much tension is generated in a contraction. Endurance is how long can the muscle continue to contract. So when it comes to power and endurance, it turns out that many animals, humans included, have muscles that are a mix of different types of muscle fibers. They're called fast twitch, slow twitch, and intermediate twitches, which is right in between. Fast twitch fibers are often referred to as the white muscle or the white fibers as well. And there's a reason for that. So let's look at something real quick and then we'll finish this up. Fast twitch or white fibers. This goes back to something we said in a previous lecture. Every myosin molecule, if that's one myosin molecule, it's going to have heads sticking off in 6 directions. Like me having 6 arms being able to pull on 6 ropes. Because every myosin fiber, it turns out, is surrounded by 6 actin filaments. Now, if I got 6 arms pulling on 6 ropes, there's only so much tension I can generate. But what if I increase the number of arms pulling? Like if we were in a tug of war, if I added 10 more people, that would be more tension. So if I start to add some myosin here all the way around, see if I did this right. I don't think I did, but let's start drawing it out. Every actin is surrounded by 3 myosins, or every thin filament is surrounded by 3 thick filaments. It would be like that. Okay? Now I have more tension because I have more protein. I have more myosins pulling on actins, or thick filaments pulling on thin filaments. So now, what if I add more ropes to pull on? So what if I do this? Oops, that marker's not working. What if I do this? La da 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 da. Now I have more ropes to pull on. Now I've added arms and ropes. I'm increasing the tension. So this structure is my myofibrils inside of a muscle cell. If I increase the diameter by adding protein to the myofibrils, the muscle cell has to get larger. So one of the things we know about, several things we know about fast twitch fibers. They generate a lot of power. They have large diameter myofibrils. There's more protein. There's more arms pulling on more ropes, providing more tension. This is why people who are trying to develop a lot of power and muscle eat high protein diets. protein shakes, protein drinks, a lot of muscle, a lot of meat, a lot of chicken, so that they're trying to add more myofibrils. We digest chicken muscle, or the amino acids that you take in get sent to the muscle cells, the nucleus. The more we work the muscle cell, the nucleus turns on genes to produce more actin and myosin. We feed it the amino acids through transcription and translation. We build more protein and assemble it into more sarcomeres, therefore more tension. Compared to slow twitch fibers or red fibers, they have fewer mitochondria. And they have fewer blood vessels. They're not designed, fast twitch fibers are not designed to contract for long periods of time. They're designed to contract. If you wanted to throw a rock and kill something, boom. You don't need to do it 50 times. You want to do it once or twice and be done with it. So I don't need a lot of endurance here. The exact opposite of that would be slow twitch fibers. And we sometimes refer to these as red fibers. What we know is that they have less power, more endurance. They have smaller diameter myofibrils. The muscle cells aren't as large. They tend to have more mitochondria, so they can continue to replace the ATP that they burn, so that they continue to work over a longer period of time, and they have an increased number of blood vessels. They have a much better blood vessel supply, to continue to replace the oxygen and glucose for the generation of ATP. We're not going to talk a lot about intermediate fibers. They're kind of a combination of the two. In humans and many animals, we are a combination. All of our muscles are some combo of fast twitch and slow twitch fibers. Some are a little more than others, or more one than the other. And some people are more one than the other. There are some people that are very, very fast, and there are some people who can't run fast to save their life. But some people can perform over a long period of time. So now, an animal like a chicken has some muscles that are completely separated out. The dark meat is the red fibers, the dark meat, is the red fibers, the endurance fibers, like found in the thighs and the legs, because they walk around constantly all day foraging for food. The power fibers are the white fibers, like in the breast muscle and the wing, where they're trying to really power themselves and lift themselves off the ground. Despite what most people think, chickens can fly. They can only fly for short distances, though, just enough to escape a predator. So the power fibers are the white meat, the breast. The dark meat would be more endurance fibers. Rarely do you bite into a chicken breast and see a blood vessel sticking out, but you bite into a leg or a thigh and they're very vascular. They're much richer and less dry. These dry out faster because there's less fluids in them. I know that's not the sweetest thing to think about when you're eating, but nonetheless, it's the truth. So anyway, for now, this concludes a lot of our muscle lectures. I hope that you learned something. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And I'm sorry if this lecture went on a little longer, but I wanted to finish up the chapter. And we'll be ready to start taking muscle quizzes in the near future. For those of you in my class, review your note set, review the worksheets that are going to be presented to you. If they're not available, be patient. I'm working on them. And then you have a quiz coming up soon. Those of you not in my class, I hope this helped you learn something. Okay? All right, thanks. Thanks for watching.